What's up, my friends? How you doing today? Well, I suppose this video should be entitled something along the lines of, finding purpose or life goals or what should I be doing with my life. It's funny, if you title a video with a question, you'll find a lot of people say, oh, I googled this particular question and this was a video that came up. So you could leave a title like, what is the meaning of life? And then somebody will Google it and find a video and say, oh, this person has an opinion on what the meaning of life is. But in reality, it's kind of a joke because nobody really, nobody's in agreement upon which methods we should pursue or what we should be doing with this life. And in other words, to put it simply, there are a lot of people who believe all that matters is this life and that's it. And there are a lot of people who believe this life doesn't matter and that the afterlife is all that matters. And yet other people who believe that the afterlife doesn't matter, it's your next life that matters, or your previous life. All of that aside, what should we be doing right now with our time? And I'm, of course, not talking in terms of growth or spirituality. I'm talking about work, getting things done, because life is about work. And I'm not talking about physical labor. I'm not talking about getting a job. I'm talking about the work it takes to grow. If life is too easy, or seems too easy, and we're getting by without any stresses whatsoever, if we don't feel like we should be doing anything better, or we feel like everything's just perfect, then we're fooling ourselves. We're deluding ourselves. Because we know when we look deep down inside, there's always something that we could grow from. Yet, often it can go the opposite direction, and people become overwhelmed with all of the possibilities of what they could be doing. Oh, I'm 40 now, I should have done this. Or, oh, now I'm 60, I should have done this. Or, I'm only 20, but I should be doing this. And when we set aside the ages and forget about how old we are, we forget about the mistakes we've made, other than growing from them. You can never quite forget about them, but in other words, we start over, right now, at this moment in our lives. When I turned 40, it was kind of a wake-up call to, when they talk about over the hill and all that crap. I think over the hill's 40. That's 50. Shit, I don't even know. It doesn't matter. Point being that there's all these associations made with time. All these associations made with how many seasons you've been alive. Which brings up the term seasoned. A person who is seasoned. I guess that's an interesting thought, but the idea is that no matter how much negativity we've had in the past or how much crap we've endured, that we've grown from it and learned that now we can start over. When I lost my job a couple of years ago, or rather quit, I'd been a carpenter for, most of my adult life, and I loved working with wood. I loved building things. And when my back started to give me problems, I said, well, I'm going to at least switch to finished carpentry because it's much finer. I can do cabinetry. I don't have to lift as much and bend over as much, but the fact is I still did. Building cabinets, lifting plywood, base molding, all these things that were heavy. And there was a point where I would get out of my car in the morning, it would take me 10 minutes just to stand up straight. And sitting down was nearly impossible. But it had just become the norm for me. That's what I did. And one day I said, my knee is hurting, my back's hurting. I'm 38 years old, or I was at the time. I said, I have a lot of life to live, and I don't want to live it later suffering merely because I'm making good money now. So I told my boss, I was like, I said, I can't do this anymore. He's like, well, you need a couple weeks off? I was like, no, I think I'm done forever with carpentry. And I never went back. And at that point, my life became a little bit scattered because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I also knew inside there's no one thing I want to do. I'm an artist. I love to do many different things. I like to have sources of income from a variety of different places because it's not the income that matters to me. It's the projects that I'm doing and enjoying life and getting things done. So I got myself into kind of a situation where I have all these dreams and desires, but when I really ask myself what they are, they're not quite so cut and dry. I don't have the desire to just be a millionaire or to buy a particular big house or a car. I don't really have any material things that I desire, except for the ability to live happily. If I had money, I would probably use it to try and bring people together. You know, I've thought about communities, and this morning I was thinking of how much I'd love to start a nonprofit. And I guess that's what got me on this line of thinking, was thinking of how complicated it seems to get something started. Like when I started my kratom business about a year ago now, there was all kinds of chaos and shit I had to deal with. You know, trying to sign up through, sign up for Dwella and try to figure out how to accept credit cards, and then dealing with the IRS, bank accounts, all these different things and links, and it takes all this time. But eventually the system starts working for itself. You still have to put in effort, but you're just feeding the fire rather than starting the fire. And I guess we could look at it that way. Anytime we start a new project, you have to get the kindling and start the fire. Once it's going, you just have to keep feeding it. And I think that we'd all be a little happier if we were able to take on a path that we choose. But it's not always that easy. You can't just say, I want to be this and be it. You can, and people will tell you, you have the power to do anything you want, but the reality is that circumstances of an individual's life can dictate what they can do, and you have to be reasonable and rational. It's like, the peasant can't just say, well, I'm going to be king one day, when he knows that's unlikely. But even if he could, would he want to be? And I think that that's a good way to look at everything. We ask ourselves, what do we want? And when we ask ourselves, like, what is it that we want? Often there are no answers. We just want to be happy, or we just want to be successful. And what is success? Success to me is being able to wake up every day and live it. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. I wake up in the morning sometimes, or in the middle of the night, and think about all the things that I wish I could get done or would get done, or how I should motivate to do more of this or more of that. I choose not to feed the fire of nonsense and tell myself everything's just perfect, because then I won't grow. So really it comes down to what do we want out of life? What do we want out of ourselves? And what do we want out of those around us? What do we expect? And the more expectations we have, the more let down we can become. And I think that that's something important to remember. But if we don't have any expectations, we never accomplish anything. So, as always, somewhere in the middle is the answer. Don't ask me. I'm just a human.